All right, fellow mech heads, we've been looking at mech reviews. We've been exploring by request and also sharing some of the mechs that I'm currently playing, working on some new ideas with the Valkyrie. I'll be posting that soon. But we needed a little bit of balance. You know, we looked at the clans. We're going to get back to them. We were looking at Inner Sphere. We've been looking at some mech design. I want to jump over to vehicles just for a little bit. And I promise I'm not going to get lost. I'm building the list of requests and comments, and it's easy being a tank enthusiast. Doesn't matter the gaming system. Doesn't matter the gaming system. I love tanks. This is why Battletech is I'm like that dude that's trying to figure out which button to press, and I can't figure out what button to press because I love mechs, and I want to take my maximum battle value on mechs, but at the same time, I need to take maximum battle value on tanks. I don't know what to play. But I wanted to balance it, and I promise I won't get too sidetracked. We're going to look at a couple of heavy tanks. We're going to look at a couple of really light tanks, this idea of both on the spectrum, balance it out, jump back into mechs, and continue to position ourselves for incoming plastic mechs, incoming new maps, incoming golden age of Battletech. So let's jump in with the Rommel. And what initially attracted me to this tank, battle value, weapon, and tonnage. Yeah, like a 100-ton tank. It's called the Behemoth. And it can mount a ton of weapons on there. I've pushed up my experiences with the Behemoth to the Battletech playlist here on my channel. But at 100 tons, it brings up the battle value. What I find with vehicles, once you cross 60 tons. So this is, we're looking at 75 with the Rommel. 80 maybe. I think it's 75. 75 tons. This is kind of the sweet spot for heavy-ish tanks. Battle values a little bit lower, or as low as it's going to be. Nothing's free. But you have the space and the tonnage to mount good armor, excellent armor, and some heavy-hitting weapons. So you're seeing the true power of these tanks where they can actually now challenge mechs and utilize the best of the vehicle rules. There are disadvantages to vehicles. We looked at that also. But you're getting the sweet spot buy-in for the battle value. Now, that's not to say tanks like the Scorpion and other low-level battle value tanks are rubbish, but this is why I picked the Rommel as that sweet spot. We're looking at an autocannon 20. One autocannon 20. Mounted in the turret. So you don't have the redundancy of two, and we're going to compare it to the Demolisher a little bit because I like the Demolisher, and at first glance it might seem like the Demolisher is better. You have two tanks that are somewhat similar. I think the Demolisher was 80. That's what I'm thinking of. And Demolisher's a little bit more battle value, but not by much. So two examples of somewhat similar tanks, but depending on the situation, vastly different. The Rommel's got the autocannon 20. You don't have the redundancy, means you got one shot on that AC-20, but it's an AC-20. It's going to threat. Hunchback players, you know what I'm talking about. You're on the turret. So now this means you have 360-degree radius of threat. That is important as a vehicle simply because as you take motive hits and as you get chewed up, if you get immobilized and you're not playing with the rules where the crew bails out, you still have that ring, that turret to move around. You also have the ability to, in theory, get hull down against the majority of targets, but possibly fire at another target. So it's nice to have these big guns or primary weapon systems mounted in a turret. We then look at long-range missiles. Now, it's only a 5-pack, but that does change things significantly. And you have a small laser to round it out. The Rommel wants to fight in the city. It has the armor. It's not the fastest tank, but we're getting up there for heavy tanks. In a city, speed always helps, but it's not the death sentence that it would be if you were like playing out in an open plain. But at the same time, with the Rommel wanting to operate in the city, as soon as you pull it out of an urban environment, it can still do something because it has good enough speed. It has the long-range missile 5-pack. And once it gets to that short-range area, you're going to be utilizing the AC-20. You're going to be utilizing the laser. And since we don't really have to worry about heat or ammo, yeah, you'll fire the long-range missile 5-pack. You're going to have minimums. You're going to have movement modifiers. Before we even crunch the numbers, you need like 10s, 11s, or 12s to hit. You can still shoot from that perspective. On a mech, you might not be shooting the long-range missile 5-pack at close range. Again, not ideal, but this idea of you have three weapon bands. Long range for the long-range missile 5s. Then you close to medium range, where you're going to be shooting the long-range missile 5s and the autocannon 20 at long range. And then close range, where you're going to be shooting all three. Compare that to the Demolisher. I play both of these tanks a lot. The Demolisher has the redundancy of, it's got two autocannon 20s. You notice that right away. And then on top of that, it's in the turret. And it's got good speed, and it's got amazing armor. But that's all it has. That's all it has. So outside of a defensive position or outside of dedicated city tech, city fight, you're in trouble. You don't really have anything to drive off the light mechs. You don't really have anything if something's going to plink away at you and you do get immobilized or you start taking motive hits. You don't have as many tactical options. You have more with the Rommel. So if we're looking tactically, you want a tank that's not going to break the battle value, that has good armor, good speed, mounts an autocannon 20, that's going to threaten multiple targets. It's going to threaten vehicles. It's going to threaten mechs. Light mechs are going to just stay the heck out of there. The Rommel has more flexibility if you don't know where you're fighting on. If you don't know the map that you're fighting on. It could be a random map or just select your forces. Then we'll reach in. What I've been doing is just pulling out a random hex map. That's what we're playing. Then we kind of roll for missions, see what we can do, adapt, overcome, innovate. I tend to take the Rommel more based on that compared to the Demolisher. We're looking at, it's got great armor. It's got good mobility. It's got an autocannon 20. Think of it as a souped-up kind of hunchback from that perspective. It's only 933 battle value. And ultimately, the way to combat some of the deficiencies of motive hits and getting immobilized, being aggressive with the Rommel, getting it into position. It's always at the front, not just because it's short-range weaponry. Getting it to the front, so if it does get immobilized, it's, again, got that ring. It's got that autocannon 20 ring on the turret. That makes it a major, major threat. So being aggressive and getting it into position, I'm going to do my best not to get immobilized, but if I do, 933 battle value. I mean, that's a fantastic buy to augment your list. And from that perspective, I would say it's one of the heavier tanks that the Rommel, the Patton, the Demolisher, looking to play and looking to explore.